All right, good afternoon, everyone. So there is no bouncer at the door today on Zoom, and it is letting everyone in. So we are not able to tell when we've hit critical mass and should start the meeting. Usually we see a certain amount of participants. So we're going to do it the old-fashioned way and start on time. And you know the meeting is officially started these days in Zoom when I put on the readers. So this means we are on. Good afternoon and welcome to the March 2022 Academic Fiscal Officer and Business Manager Group meeting. This is our fourth meeting of the 2021-2022 academic year. I know the UIC/UIS AFO/BMG is a mouthful. I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking this. So please send me a note if you think we should have a renaming contest, although I'm sure I'm just doomed to my inbox. We have great weather today. I know it's supposed to get to almost 70 degrees today. We had daylight savings this weekend. We do have a little more daylight every day. I know this week is spring break at Springfield. So thank you to all the UIS troopers who made it to today's meeting. And I know UIC spring break is next week, so I hope you have some wonderful plans. And with that in mind, with the great weather and all the spring breaks, I want to keep things moving. So we're going to kick off the March 2022 AFO BMG meeting. And as I scroll, so just a few housekeeping items. You've all been placed on mute. So the way you can communicate with us is that you can type questions in the chat box on the side. Please keep in mind those chat questions go to everyone. We have a team that is reviewing the questions as they come in, and we will try to get to them all. But if time constrains us, or if you have a question that comes to you later in the meeting, we will look at those questions after the meeting ends and be sure to answer them as well. Also, if you have additional questions, there'll be a link to the meeting video sent out, so you can reach out to presenters as you feel the need arises. Certainly, always feel free to reach out to my staff and myself whenever you have questions, comments, or ideas. Ginger, Bernadette, and Dana are there to serve you and assist in resolving your issues. You will find our contact information on the last side of the presentation so that you can reference it at any time. If we can move to the announcements. Oh, the agenda, I'm sorry. I'm sure everyone's memorized the agenda, so I think we're good there. We do have a packed agenda today. We have one announcement that we wanted to make to this group to make everyone aware of. The Office of Business Services is offering a business and finance employee orientation. The orientation provides a basic understanding of the information and resources available to help you get started in your business and finance role at the University of Illinois. The orientation also delivers a high-level overview of the departments that can assist you with your business and finance needs. And lastly, the orientation highlights the University of Illinois overall reporting structure. You can sign up for the orientation on the OBFS website at the link included on this slide. We hope you take advantage of this orientation and join us at one of the upcoming sessions. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to the Office of Business Services. I did have one, we have one hot off the presses announcement I wanted to make. So this morning, there was an announcement on some org changes in the CFO's office. Many of you have probably heard about the upcoming retirement of Mike Bass, who currently serves as the special advisor to the president and deputy comptroller. So the new reporting structures and organizational changes have been announced as of 10 a.m. this morning. Capital Programs, Real Estate Planning and Services, and Office of Medicaid Innovation will report directly to the Office of the CFO. And they are announcing a search for an assistant vice president for procurement for the system. In this role, the structure for the AVP for procurement will include the following units: diversity procurement, Illinois Public Higher Education Cooperative, system purchasing, and university payables. So as ever, they're looking for the ideal structures to make us as productive as possible. So I look forward to those exciting changes. And I think that brings us to our first session. The first presenter we will hear from today is Bridget Toe, University Accounting and Financial Reporting. Please take it away.
Thank you. Let me. Okay. So welcome everybody. Hope you're enjoying the nice weather as well. Please forgive me, I am getting over a cold, so I'll do my best to make it through here. So account codes, exciting topic. We'll look at a kind of a quick overview of account codes, the state accounting management system, also called SAMS, some guidance on some proper usage, and a quick look at the account code search tool. So just a quick highlight here. Account codes are going to designate the type of transaction within your focal string, and they're crucial so that account codes are crucial for the accurate reporting on our finances, as well as some state reporting that we're required to do annually. Also, we like to remind everyone to really think about their account code and the transaction that they're posting to because of its impact. So the importance, as we had said, it's the natural classification within our financial structure, and the account code is going to designate if it's an expense, a revenue, as asset or liability. And so if you take a revenue and post it to an expense account code, then it just kind of throws off what the true nature of a balance really is reflecting. Critical to accurate financial reporting and state reporting. Account codes are tied to our SAMS codes, which is that state accounting management system I had referenced before. And the state compliance auditors come in and review those to make sure that we're in compliance with the state and how they want to see expenses classified as well. Not only for the state, but also our own financial reporting, so that our annual financials are comparable every year, so that when we say we have $200,000 in consumable supplies, that's really truly is all consumable supplies and doesn't have someone's travel lodging in there as well. So we want to make sure we have a clear audit trail and that our account codes help in that to make sure that we're able to trace back what is happening within our financial records. And so we want to make sure that we have clear documentation in with those account codes and those transactions for when questions come up. Our account codes do have internal and external audit implications. If somebody uses a wrong account code, we can receive a finding from the external auditors. Financial reporting with account codes does help keep it, making sure that what you're presenting to your department, your college, the overall campus of the university is comparable and fair reporting. Like in my example again, that we're not posting travel lodging to a mileage account code or something. We want to make sure that it's comparable from year to year to year. And that helps also in the budgeting process. So just a quick refresher here, account codes, revenues are a 3, expenses are a 1, and fund transfers start with a 4. Expenses could also be a 2 for payroll. And these are always going to be a 6-digit on the operating ledger. And that is going to be your annual activity. Then in the general ledger, you have the 5 digits with assets being a 5, liabilities a 6, beginning fund balance is 7, and then your control accounts are going to be an 8. And your general ledger is what rolls from year to year. So talking about the SAMS codes, as I had said, this is part of the state of Illinois Comptroller's office, the state accounting management system. So the SAMS code is a 4-digit code that the state uses, and it's kind of like their account code. And so every single one of our account codes ties to a 4-digit SAMS code. So that when we submit an expense to the state for reimbursement, the state looks at what 4-digit code we submitted it under, and they refer to their definitions to make sure that that expense falls within their definitions. If it does not, then they reject it out, and we have to do some paperwork to be able to get that resubmitted. So the state compliance auditors will come in and make sure that we're properly tying our account codes to the SAMS codes and that we're using those accurately each year. They have multiple SAMS codes. We have a large document that we refer to that we download off of the IOC website that details out the various SAMS codes, and they're broken out into areas like travel, contractual services, telecommunications, personnel. And they can be very exact in their detail and what can go into those. So to make sure you're following these, you really want to make sure that when you look at your transaction and are picking an account code, you think of the true nature of your transaction and look at the account code to see if it fits. So if you're buying copy paper, you really want to make sure you're using that consumable office supplies 121100. And as we'll look at later in the account code search application, there is not only detailed definitions, but also many times we have examples. And so look at those examples, because sometimes what you're purchasing could be in those examples, or it may be a close enough that to give you a nice hint at where you should be putting it. Make sure you're not using expense account codes to record sales revenue. You want to use, a 1 account code for an expense, a 3 for revenue. And again, if you do record sales revenue under an expense account code, you're distorting the true nature of your expenses. So we really want to avoid that. And of course, then we also don't want to use an expense account code for a funding transfer, thinking that, oh, we can just grab 142,900 and we'll just transfer this $20,000 from this fund, from fund A to fund B, and it'll be fine. We really need to be, if we're transferring funds, we need to look at the type of fund it is and what would be the proper way to transfer those funds, if at all possible. Otherwise, we would want to look at transferring exact expenses as appropriate, where we can identify an invoice or a P card or T card number in order to move those expenses over. We want to make sure we're using employee reimbursement account codes where appropriate. We have went through, and this is one of those areas with the SAMS codes where the state has very clearly said, we need to know what we're reimbursing employees for versus what we're paying vendors directly for. And so we've went through And those account codes where an employee reimbursement would be appropriate, we have created or designated employee reimbursement account codes. So if you have an employee out on travel and they pay for their hotel, there is an employee reimbursement account code, versus if a travel card is used to pay the hotel directly, we would want to use the vendor payment account code there. Same thing with student payments. We want to watch those account codes closely for scholarships or student prizes, because there are tax reporting requirements with some of those. Okay, so you can use the account code search application to identify account codes, and each one gives a description. Most of them have an example, and they also have a do not use for section. So if you read those 3 sections, hopefully within there, you've either identified your transaction that yes, it belongs here, or in the do not use for section, it gave you more direction possibly on where to go with that transaction. We highly recommend that you're reconciling your transactions every month so that these transactions can be reclassified as appropriate. As I said, if an account code is used inappropriately and the auditors come in and find that we misposted a transaction to an account code, we could receive an audit finding there. So by reconciling every month and identifying transactions that were misposted, whether it be through a transposition error or whatever the case might have been, you're able to correct those before the auditors find them. Okay. So the account code search application, it's going to allow you to browse all the account codes. You can mark your favorites, and there also is a glossary for technical terms if there's something, a word that you have a question on. Okay, so here's the main screen of the account code search application. And here, as you can see, you can search by either a word or phrase or an exact account number. I do suggest in using the search application to use to start with a single word. You're going to get a greater result in suggested account codes by using a single word versus a phrase. So it may, if you put in a phrase, you may limit, because we may not have your exact phrase in there. We try to cover all bases, but sometimes we miss maybe a key word. So if you put one in there, it might bring up something else if you use a single word. And then, of course, like I said, you can always look by the exact account code. Up at the top, you'll see where you can download all account codes. So you can download an Excel spreadsheet of all 2,500 account codes or however many we have. There's the glossary and then your favorites account codes as well. So here's an example of one of our account codes, and you can see we have a description, but we don't have examples. We have some pretty useful do not use for section, and you can see down below where we also have the SAMS code listed. And then here's one where we do have examples listed, and you can see we try to be pretty specific and give lots of examples so that you get an idea of what should be going in with that account code. Okay. Before I move on, I want to call your attention up here to the top. This one says remove from my favorite account codes. If I didn't already have this in my favorite account codes, there would be a yellow star here and it would say add to my favorite account codes. And by clicking one of those buttons, you can either add it to your list or delete it from your list. If you're on this list here, my favorite account codes, you can always remove an account code as well by hitting the trash can. Now, one thing here is this only gives the description, not the examples or do not use for section, but this could be a nice start. You can download this to your desktop. I do caution you though, if you do download it, to refresh that at least every couple of months, as we are updating account codes on a regular basis. So you want to make sure you have the most accurate descriptions in your reference list. And sometimes if you have a new employee starting in your department, a list like this could be nice until they get used to the general operations so that they continue to use the correct account codes for the unit's transactions. Okay. And that's all I have. Here's some quick references. Are there any questions or?
There is one question. Office supplies used in a research lab, will that be okay to use account code used for lab supplies, or has it to be the account code for office supply only?
So I think it's really going to depend upon what those are and how they're being used. You know, if you have paper clips, those are probably going to be more of an office supply versus a lab supply. So I think it's really going to be how they're being used and what the exact item is.
Okay, thank you so much. That's the only question at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, if anybody has any questions in the future, please feel free to give me a call or email me. And thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Bridget. It's always great to brush up on the fundamentals. It's always great for me to brush up on the fundamentals, so thank you. Up next is Dana Lebreau, who will run us through recent policy updates as well as upcoming policy changes.
Thank you, Bill. Again, my name is Dana Lebreau, Senior Coordinator in the Office of Business Services. We're going to go through recent policy updates, some upcoming policy changes, and then just our contact info in case you have any questions. Next slide, Bernadette, please. Okay, some recent policy updates. There was a business and finance newsletter that went out alerting everyone to the updates to policy to reflect Contracts Plus and Chrome River. These two projects were the result of hard work and input from subject matter experts across various departments. And Policy Office is so grateful to all who participated in the editing process. And we look forward to partnering with these folks again to improve policy at every point possible. And then Section 861 requests direct payment for approved goods and services. I just wanted to note that the TEM allowable payments list has been updated with several new allowable payments. And these include payments to vendors, promoters for ticket sales, deposits held for an event, payments to vendors, promoters, performers for contracted performances and athletic events, payments to contracted summer or sport camp counselors, and payments to athletic event officials. And again, this information was shared in a business and finance newsletter. If you have any questions, you can either contact us or your contract processing office. And then, your purchasing department. And then lastly, Section 18.12, the IRS EIN exemption letter and IRS EIN letter have been updated just recently and are available for download within the policy. Next slide, please. Thank you. And some upcoming policy changes. Section 22, management and accounting for facility use agreements and technical testing agreements. This draft policy concerning the management and accounting of these TTAs and FUAs is currently available for review and open comment through this Friday, March 18th. You can reach this open comment blog through the policy manual. We do appreciate any comments and suggestions. So if you have a moment, we would really appreciate your time taking a look at that policy. And then Section 8.4.2, this will be a new policy, electronic codes for human subject payments. We are looking at this policy prior to rollout, and it will be available for open comment period just as soon as we're finished. So look out for this in the next week or so. And then we're also working on Section 15.3, reporting an accident for motor vehicles. So we are updating and consolidating the 3 policies that are current in effect concerning the reporting of accidents involving employee use of vehicles on university business. So as always, please don't hesitate to contact our office of any gaps in policy or need to update policy due to a change in business operations or procedures. And for the next slide is just our contact information. So please reach out to me or Brian Sump, our policy coordinator, if we can help in any way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dana. Do we have Richard and Jacqueline?
Yes, I'm here. Dr. Gemeinhart can't attend, but I will be presenting.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. I do need to share my screen if you can allow me to.
Jacqueline, I believe you are set as a co-host, so if you want to take over the screen, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, great.
Sure.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for letting me join you today. My name is Jacqueline Jansis. I'm the Director for Conflict of Commitment and Interest. I'm in the Office of Vice Chancellor for Research, and I work with Richard Gemeinhart. He's the Associate Vice Chancellor for Research. He has oversight for the Office of Research Integrity, so I report up to him, and we have been going around to different colleges and different groups to talk about UIC research, which is the new electronic application that's going to be replacing the Start My Disclosures and the FCOI checklist for research compliance and for the annual outside activities disclosure. So this is a presentation today to kind of introduce you to the UIC research application. It does address IRB and COI, but I will be speaking directly just to the COI component. Right, so this is just to give you an introduction. We're going to talk about our goals with the new application, and then the role of unit heads and administrators, and also give you a little bit of an experience in the application from a user's perspective. So the goal really with this application is to have a simplified, intuitive, and integrated interface. We wanted something that was easier for users and brought everything together. We wanted something that hopefully the interaction is much more quicker and more intuitive when you go into it. And additionally, a lot of the information is just there for you. So when you need to change it, you can change it, but you don't have to keep on submitting more disclosures. You're just updating your information. So we also want transparency and accountability. And we think by having a better system and an easier to use system, there'll be greater transparency and accountability with making disclosures to the university. So what we are reaching out to department heads and administrators to ask you to start letting people in your units know that these changes will be coming in the summer this year, and to anticipate these changes and to attend some of the training sessions that we'll be starting to do as we get closer to the go live date, which is June 28th. So we would like to work with you if there is an opportunity to set up a training or to come out to your units or to your college to talk with you. Feel free to reach out to us so that we can set those up, but we will have a variety of trainings available for you. We also have a handout, which I'll provide to Bernadette, and she can distribute to this group, which will have some talking points for you to share with people in your units. We also have a website up on the VCR page, and you can go in there. You can see the announcements. The Vice Chancellor's already sent out a few announcements about the new application. We will be posting links to training sessions that you can register for. There's nothing there at the moment, but we will, as we start scheduling those training sessions, make those available there. And then we also have FAQs, because as we're making these presentations to colleges, a number of questions have come up. So we've been putting these common questions into the FAQs so that you can see all that information there. And then this is our talking points, which I'll have a handout for this. But it goes over the main points, like when are we launching this application, who will be using the UIC research application. So it goes over, there's talking points for COI. If you go to the website, we also have similar questions for IRB. But it goes over the main things for COI. So we will be launching the systems in June 28th of this year. And we will be, anyone who's been using the Start My Disclosures application for submitting outside activities disclosures for report of non-university activities. And also anyone who's been doing disclosures for research for Congress compliance, they will be using this application. And then when will you be submitting, and when do you require to update, and what are those deadlines? Again, we're following our processes as we have always done. We have an annual disclosure process for the outside activities. There will be a deadline for that, which will be October 10th. So there's a good window of time in there between the go live date in June to October to get people into that system and start putting their information in there so they have their disclosures ready. So that way in August, when we need those disclosures to get submitted, you can just go in and easily update your disclosure profile. There's also requirements to update within 30 days for people who are in research projects, if there's any changes in your activities. And then there's also going to be a process for prior approval. So if you haven't gotten approval to engage in outside activities, the application will have a tool in it to allow you to go through the request process for getting prior approval. Training's not going to be required, but we do think it's really a good idea to attend some of these trainings that we'll be able to offer. We will create some instructional videos. Huron has a number of instructional videos that are out of their box, and basically they're really just, informative of how to how to do the functions in the system. So, we will have a lot of resources available, and we'll make those available to you as those are coming out. This is the project team who's been working on this. So myself, Dr. Gemeinhart, and Scott McEwen, he's the COI coordinator. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we're happy to help you, and we're happy to help walk you through the system. We'll be setting up some office hours so that we'll have some regular times where you could just drop in and ask questions. If you want to get a preview of the system or just see what we'll be doing, we could definitely do that with a Zoom. And then I will do a short demo just to show you what the system looks like. This is the UIC research application. And when you come into the application, you're going to see both sides, COI and IRB in the application. So you see at the top, you've got the COI and the IRB tabs. And then you've also got a tab for your inbox. And this is like everything that you have to do in the application is going to be there in your inbox. So you can see what you need to get done. And then you have all of the items here. And so you can really work from any of these tabs to move around through the application. And then when you go into the COI section, there's going to be a button that shows you at the top that there's an action that's required. So that's letting you know something needs to get done. Then there's a clear instruction center in the middle. So that's letting you know what actions are required and the reason that you need to do it. And there could be more than one in this set of instructions. So you might need to do disclosure, you might need to do training. So it's letting you know in here. And then the last down here at the bottom, you see the edit disclosure profile. That is a button to open up into the disclosure profile so that you can edit and make those changes to your disclosure. That's going to be submitted as part of your certification for annual outside activities. The other button up at the top is the pre-approval request. And those are requests that you can make to get approval prior to engaging in activities. And so we'll walk through a demo with each of those. So the pre-approval process, you come into the system, you click on the pre-approval, you submit, you open that up, and then there's a form, and what you're putting in there is some information related to the pre-approval, related to the activity that you're requesting to do. And you'll put in some key information at the top, like you might name it, based on the entity name or the title of the activity that you're going to be doing. And then you'll be selecting the type of request. And then you'll go on, and when you select that type of request, it opens up a form. This all lays out on one page. You're going to be filling out this form to provide those additional details about that activity that you're requesting to do. The form lays out so that you have a question, and if it's a yes, no type of question, it will expand. So if you answer yes, you'll put in your additional details. But then once you've got that form filled out, you'll submit, you'll continue, and then you'll submit, and will route, that'll go through certify, and then you route to your executive officer for review. So the routing process will be the same as we've done with the RNUA. It will still route to your unit executive officer. You can see in the application that there's a workflow in here where you can see where the review is. If the executive officer has questions, they can send it back for clarifications until they've decided that, you know, the review is complete, or if they've approved or disapproved the activities. And you can see a history of this activity below. For COI training, the system we will be implementing the training through the application as well. So you'll be going in, and when you see the prompt there and the instructions to do training, you'll be clicking on the edit disclosure profile. You'll open up that disclosure profile. There's a page for instructions and policies. You'll also see the section down at here for training. There's a document. So we'll be putting either a document or some kind of resource in there for you to open up, review the materials. And then once you've reviewed them, click on that you certify you've completed your training. And then you'll click continue, and you've completed the training. And then updating disclosures. Once again, you're going to go into the system. You're going to click on that edit disclosure profile, and then you will see the options to say if you have to disclose something. If it's a no, it's going to be a quick no, and then go on to certify you don't have anything to disclose. If it's a yes, the form will expand, and you'll be able to add each entity. So you'll go one by one for each entity, and you'll see the page. And this actually just it's shown on two, it's kind of broken here, but it shows all on one page. So you will be able to add the entity. So in this case, there'll be a drop down. We will be managing some of that data in there so that we can try to connect these things in our system with research information, and try to find things, similarities, like if this is a research sponsor. So you can put in the entity information. There'll also be a type in box if it's not in our drop down, and then you'll select what type of activity this is, and it can be more than one, so you can select more than one, and each one that you select will open up into its own form. So you'll be able to go in and provide all of the details, and you'll put in the information that is requested in the form. And then once you have completed that, it'll take you to the next form, and the next form in this case is sponsored travel. So you can put in each destination, and you can put in multiple destinations where you'll put all that information into the system, and then it'll collect that and put that into a table, and all of that information will aggregate, and then you will have your disclosure ready to submit at the end. There's also going to be an added page to this system, which will address nepotism and income property disclosure. So if you have a family member at the university, you can identify that you have someone who's also at the university. And then you can also identify if you have any like income rental property. And then you go on to complete your disclosure profile. You'll verify that it's true and accurate. And then once you're done, the system will say that there's no action required. So at this point, your disclosure is routed, and it's been routed for the outside activities. We'll route to your executive officer for review. Again, when you go into review side, this is a little preview of the review side of the application. You will see under requests, these are those pre-approval requests. So a reviewer would see a list of pre-approval activities that have been requested. So they would go in and complete the review for each of those activities. They would open up that activity. They would see the review. They could review everything that was submitted. When they open up that activity, they'll see they'll see the information about who's making that request, and then their entity disclosures that are already in the system so that you can make an assessment of whether or not that activity should be approved or disapproved. You will also see all of the information that's been provided as part of that request. And if you don't have sufficient information, that's where you send it back to ask for more information. And then you'll be taken to a point where you have to approve or disapprove. And again, this is the point where we're trying to point out that, if something shouldn't be happening, we should be disapproving the activity at that point. But we expect most activities would get approved, but this is a required process by the university policy. So we have to request approval for those outside activities. And then the certification process for outside activities. And these are the activities that you've engaged with over the last academic year that you'll be submitting your certification for. So you will submit your disclosure profile, which routes an academic outside activities certification to the executive officer. So the executive officer would open this up. They will see a list of the certifications that are pending their review. And they'll be able to go into each one and look at where they are in the workflow and the process. They will be able to open them up and complete the review. This is not intended to be, the full training, but it's just to explain there are different review procedures, but it's all in the system. So the management plans, also there will be a tab for management plans. So when you have a management plan, there's a workflow process for a management plan, and all of those will be in the system as well. And so when the management plan goes through the process for review, it goes through a review process and then goes to an active state. You can see in the system all of the details related to the history for the review of that management plan. And there's a lot of functionality with the management plan where we can relate it to multiple projects, and we can relate it to bigger activities. We can use one plan, we can have multiple plans. There's a lot of flexibility with the application. But you can open it up and you can see all the details in the management plan. So it's very user-friendly. Right, so if you have questions, please reach out to me or to Dr. Gemeinhardt or to Scott McEwen. We're happy to work with you and talk with you about the system. And if there's an opportunity where you want to invite us to talk with your faculty or your staff, please let me know.
Jacqueline, we have a couple of questions posted in the chat.
Oh, sure.
Will everyone who must complete RNUA be in and do reporting in this new COI application?
Yeah, so there will be everyone who is doing the RNUA now, as long as you're continuing that status, employment class, you would continue to do the outside activities reporting through this new process there, so that the RNUA will go away, that report of non-university activities that we've been doing through Start My Disclosures. That disclosure process is going away and being replaced by this outside activities disclosure process.
Okay, and what is the reason for changing the system, and will there remain a proxy feature?
So the reason for changing the system is because we wanted a system that had better integration with other components of research compliance. So this will be integrated with IRB, and we'll also be pulling in information from the Qualicolia system to integrate with the disclosure process. So there's a lot of good reasons for upgrading the system, also because the interface is a better one for users. We really want people to be able to use the system and not have issues. We we had complaints, with the previous system with how people would submit disclosures, but it was confusing about how you would submit another disclosure. And kind of some of the reasons for this is this gives us more flexibility with allowing people to have that living presentation of their outside activities in their disclosure profile, but then to also be able to submit requests for approvals to engage in outside activities without having any blocking interactions there. So there's a lot of really good functionality here that I think just wasn't really thought out in a homegrown system. And the advantage of getting a system from Huron is that they work with many different institutions, so they've had a lot of experience. So this is a really good, I think, change for the university.
Great. Is that proxy feature going to be available?
So there is a proxy feature, but it's a proxy for the person submitting the disclosure. So the person who submits a disclosure can select a proxy, and this person can go into the system and set up the disclosure for you, but they can't submit it for you. So you still have to submit your disclosure. But there's not the same proxy for reviewers, but we are working with Huron to find a way to have people who normally help with that process for review have a role in the system as well.
Okay, one last question. You list this for UIC. Is it also accessible for UIS?
No, this is UIC. UIS will continue using the Start My Disclosures application.
Okay. All right, that is it for the moment. Thank you so much.
Sure, great, thanks. Bye.
All right, thank you, Jacqueline. That was great. I think I probably speak for everyone in that it's great that you're out ahead of this, and it's great the amount of training opportunities you're offering. Thanks again. And next up, we have Deborah Matlock, Aaron Rosenthal, and Jill Menendez to provide updates regarding UIC and UIS purchasing and contract management.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's hard to believe that it's already March, which in purchasing terms means that renewal season is already underway. We have a couple of core updates to share with you today. Number one, we're talking about some lessons learned and where we're currently at with the deployment of Contracts Plus, our new contract management system, which everyone at UIC should now be live in. Secondly, on the purchasing side of the house, we have a number of updates to share with you, including a new mechanism for utilizing diverse firms in the area of IT contracts, some recent legislative updates, and some friendly reminders about how to handle those purchasing renewals. I'm joined today by Deborah Matlock, Executive Director of UIC Purchasing and Contract Management, as well as Jill Menendez from University of Illinois Springfield, Purchasing and Contract Management. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Jill.
Good afternoon. Contracts Plus is a University of Illinois new contract drafting and management system, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that. It replaces ICS and contract approval routing forms and serves as a single repository for all University of Illinois system contracts. This past November, there was a select group of users who went live in Contracts Plus, and this group included people who had been live in ICS previously. And then on February 14th of this year, the remaining units went live in Contracts Plus, including the hospital and College of Medicine. This means that all contracts should be initiated through a contract request form in Contracts Plus, and CARFs are no longer being used with approvals for contracts now initiated and completed within the Contracts Plus process. Okay, next slide. Okay, there's some lessons that we've learned through the implementation of Contracts Plus. One of these is that we have some contracts that are unable to move through the approval process because of missing approvers. Everyone who was involved in the approval process previously with a CARF must now be set up in the Contracts Plus system. If an approver for Contracts Plus is not presently set up in the system, this causes the missing approver step in the approval queue. All approvers will need to go to the Contracts Plus page on the OBFS website to complete the onboarding process. This process includes completing and agreeing to a confidentiality statement and then working with the USC to complete the request to add you into the system as an approver. You will not have access to Contracts Plus until the security request is in the security application is completed. Please make sure that all contract approvers are aware of this requirement. Ensure that they complete the onboarding process that is outlined on the Contracts Plus webpage as soon as possible to ensure that contracts move through the approval process quickly and efficiently. Another critical step in processing of contracts is the requirement that non-university parties must be established in Contracts Plus. You can initially search the system before setting up a contract request form to verify if the vendor or second party is set up in the system under the search contract parties in Contracts Plus. If the vendor or second party is found in the system, if they're not found in the system, I apologize, you must have them complete and submit a vendor information form and send it to UPay for processing. When you are notified that the vendor add process is completed, you can then proceed with the contract request form. For all payable contracts, you must also complete an associated requisition and I-buy to effectuate payment. On the contract request form, there is a field asking for the requisition number, and on the requisition, there is also a field to input the contract request form number. This process allows for the Purchasing and Contract Management Office to cross-reference the requisition with the contract request form. The requisition is moved to a queue waiting for the contract to be executed, and the assigned contract administrator will then process the contract to final signatures, and the requisition will be processed. And now I will turn it over to Deborah Matlock, the UIC Executive Director.
Thank you, Jill. So I wanted to provide some purchasing updates today, and meaningfully, we have a new procurement that was done by the IPEC office, the Illinois Procurement Higher Education Cooperative, and it is IPEC 2140. IPEC 2140 is a sheltered market RFP, meaning that it was limited to minorities, women, and people with disabilities who are certified by the Illinois Central Management Services Business Enterprise Program in those categories. This award replaces the KRS 102 award, which a number of you may be aware of and had used for augmenting IT services. And this new award actually has 53 awarded vendors compared to the KRS 102 award that had 28 initially, and then in its renewal, 24 vendors. And this award covers greater categories of services, including IT recruiting and professional services offerings. We have introduced a new form within iBuy, which will facilitate the gathering of quotes from those vendors which you might consider in utilizing under this award. Because this award was done by IPEC, it has already secured all approvals, and all that you need to do to utilize this award is to use this new iBuy quick quote form, which will allow you to identify the categories of services that you may be interested in utilizing, and then to go out and secure quotes from those vendors that were awarded in that particular category, so that you can then determine which vendor you want to award a purchase order for IT services. For more information, there is a website on the AITS website that summarizes the IPEC 2140 award, and there is also a job aid for completing the quick quote form. Try and say that 3 times fast. Okay, next slide, please. I want to remind everyone that there is increased attention on the utilization of diverse vendors. In particular, the Business Enterprise Program goal did go up from 20% to 30%, and that was effective as of January 1st of 22. We have included the link where you can search for BEP vendors. We do encourage everyone, regardless of the type of supplies or services that you are seeking to procure, that you do look within the particular commodity codes as well as description of supplies and services and determine if a BEP vendor might be available to provide those supplies or services. I also want to point out that the procurement code was changed such that there now is a requirement within the evaluation process for competitive solicitations to determine a vendor's commitment to diversity. This criteria has been included in new rules issued by the Chief Procurement Officer for Higher Education, and it includes evaluating such areas as whether or not this vendor has done prior contracting with BEP vendors, if this vendor has provided assistance with lines of credit and other types of capital assistance for these vendors, if that vendor has a written supplier diversity program. Some of you may be aware, Janelle Graham, who is Assistant Director for Exceptions and Exemptions within the UIC Purchasing and Contract Management Department, when she is reviewing a request for a sole source or an exempt procurement, she does generally ask the requester if the vendor does have a supplier diversity program. So we've been doing this all along, and now it's going to be even more important because it's part of the law and the administrative rules for evaluations of competitive solicitations. The other factor that is to be incorporated into the evaluation process is what is the percentage of the vendor's board and senior management who are women, minorities, or persons with disabilities. We continue to work with the Chief Procurement Officer for Higher Education to get greater granularity about how many points should be given or awarded for this. So if there is, for example, if there is only a minute number of minorities, women, or persons with disabilities who are part of the management team of a vendor, does that mean that the vendor scores 1 point? Does that mean the vendor scores 0? So we're trying to tease out that level of granularity. Next slide, please. Another change that was effective as of January 1st, 2022 was the creation of this Commission on Equity and Inclusion. I had previously referenced this in the AFO BMG in January. As of today, 4 of the 7 members which are identified as part of the new law have been appointed by the governor. And I can include in the chat the link. So if you want to see more about the Commission on Inclusion and about the commission. But the interesting thing is that the scope of this commission's responsibilities extend well beyond purchasing processes. While we are still waiting for the full complement of the commission to be appointed by the governor and then to see what rules they promulgate and other processes to determine what the true impact will be on our purchasing processes, their involvement does extend beyond procurement. And it includes creating a scoring evaluation for the state agency directors, for public university presidents and chancellors, as well as the public community college presidents. And such scoring evaluation is supposed to be based on 3 principles, namely the candidate's ability to increase capacity, grow revenue, and have enhanced credentials that demonstrate their commitment to equity and inclusion. They are also by law to provide support for diversity in state hiring and oversee the implementation of diversity training of the state workforce. Specific to UIC, they will have oversight over the Illinois African American Family Commission, the Illinois Latino Family Commission, the Asian American Family Commission, the Illinois Muslim American Advisory Council, and the Business Enterprise Council. That last comment, namely their oversight for the Business Enterprise Program Council and the Business Enterprise Program, is a change from the Illinois Department of Central Management Services. I also just want to point out that emergency purchases now, as of 1/1/22, must use best efforts to include BEP vendors. We must give notice within 5 days of publishing an emergency award to both the Procurement Policy Board and the new commission of the emergency. And that something that has changed is that such emergency purchases are subject to review. And so whereas we had authority, namely I would sign or Jill would sign in emergency procurement. While that has always been subject, there was always an implicit review to which these emergency purchases were subject. Now it is more clearly specified in the statute, in the Illinois Procurement Code, what that review consists of. And the commission could in fact request a hearing on a particular vendor and that award, the nature of that award. Next slide. We do want to remind you about renewals. The FY23 accounting period is open. Please submit your FY23 requisitions as soon as possible. Do allow us sufficient time to process all of your purchasing requirements and to obtain the required approvals. For any additional information, including the procedures to renew or establish annual orders for FY23, please see the procedures and deadlines to renew or establish annual orders for FY23 that is posted on the OBFS website. Please also note that we are issuing a communication about contracts that may require renewal. We do encourage any department that requires a competitive solicitation or may require a competitive solicitation for an award to contact us as soon as possible so that we can initiate all of the processes, including the solicitation information form, so that we can start to work with you on those competitive solicitations. And with that, if there are any questions, we'll entertain those at this time.
And Deborah, I would highlight, there was a clarification made in the chat, the process that was described about contracts now being requested in Contracts Plus directly. That is specifically talking about contracts processed by either UIC or UIS, purchasing and contract management. As Julie clarified in the chat, that is not how contracts are requested by, processed by real estate. Questions about that should be directed, please, to real estate services. Last quick comment related to Contracts Plus. Just wanted to thank everyone. UIC really rose to the challenge of deploying this new system. Jill highlighted some of those lessons learned, and with any new system, we know that there's some growing pains and kinks to be worked through, but on the whole, we're having a very, very large volume of contracts routed to us every day now in Contracts Plus. And we know that's thanks to the partnership with all of our valued customers. So thank you for that.
Yes. If nothing else, we're done.
I would echo Aaron's comments for UIS also. We thank you for using the system, and for any questions, you're jumping right on the phone and getting a hold of us, and we're helping you guys get through the process. So we appreciate you embracing the new contract system.
I think we can give a shout out to you guys, to Jill, Aaron, and Deborah, for getting it all done and making it work and working so well with everyone. So thank you.
There are some more changes that are coming effective March 21st. Yeah, so there are some enhancements and improvements in terms of search capabilities. So we're looking forward to the utilization, to our increased utilization. And of course, if anyone ever has any challenges or questions or suggestions, we do appreciate you giving one of us a call.
Okay, I have a feeling you'll be taken up on that.
It's all good.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? I'm sorry, before break.
No, there are no other questions.
Okay, thank you. To a 5-minute break. So if I could ask everyone to just be back at 2:10, we'll keep it easy. 2:10, we will reconvene. Thank you. All right. And promptly at 2:10, now 2:11, we are back. So it's going good so far. I feel like we're going to get even distribution of questions between the topics, engaging topics. I can't turn off the analytics in my head, but I think we're getting even attention, lots of good questions. So this is going really well. With that momentum, we're going to move right to the space survey and training. I'm happy to present Patricia Pak to take us through it.
Thank you, William, and I hope that you will find this equally engaging.
Absolutely.
If you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide, please. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is just a friendly reminder that the FY22 annual space survey is opening in less than 3 weeks. It will begin on Monday, April 4th, and we will keep it open for a month until Friday, May 6th. All UIC academic fiscal officers and unit space managers should have received an email announcement about this from the provost, and that went out on Tuesday, March 1st. Please note that later this year, the U of I system will submit a facilities and administrative rate proposal to the federal government, and that will result in a new FNA rate for the period of FY24 through the 26th. And as you well know, this indirect cost recovery revenue is a very important component of UIC's overall budget. So it will be really crucial for all departments to participate in a timely manner and also to provide accurate information. This will be particularly critical since the federal government representatives will physically audit selected rooms, and they will adjust our proposed rate if they find any inaccurate information. So that being said, we have scheduled 2 webinars in order to ensure that all space gatekeepers and business managers have an opportunity to go over the survey process, whether you are new to the survey or may need a refresher. During the webinars, we will review key terminology and answer any questions that you may have. So these webinars have been scheduled. One is tomorrow, Thursday, and that is March 17th from 1:30 to 3 p.m. And we also have one on Tuesday, March 29th, also from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. We will be recording them and they will be available on our website for future reference if you are unable to join but would like to review the information presented. The email from the provost contained the webinar registration form. So please email me at bpac2@uic.edu if you have any questions, or if you can't find this email, I'm happy to forward you a copy of this official email with all the information about registration. Me and my team will be available via email throughout the survey period. So please don't hesitate to contact us. We're here to answer any of your questions and really want to help you because we know that this is a really big initiative for everyone. I do look forward to working with many of you on this important initiative, and thank you so much for your time today.
All right, thanks, Patricia. High engagement, high engagement. Do we have any questions?
There are no questions.
Excellent, thank you. Well, we appreciate you providing the updates and due dates, yeah. Let's see. Digital risk. So we're going to hear from the newly appointed Chief Digital Risk Officer for the University of Illinois System, Joe Barnes. I don't want to step on the story, but this is a brand new office and Joe is very proactive in reaching out to discuss his office and some of the challenges. So take it away, Joe.
Thanks. I'm going to just bring up my mandatory slide deck that everybody has to watch. So, all right. So I'm going to, hi everyone, I'm Joe Barnes. As Bill said, I'm the Chief Digital Risk Officer for the University of Illinois System. I'm going to walk through a couple of slides really quickly. I think by the time I'm done today, I'm hoping you know a little bit more about digital risk, and then also a little bit about how we can probably partner together looking forward over the next few months, next year or so. So again, as Bill said, I'm Joe Barnes. I'm in this newly created role. I've been in the role now for, I guess, officially 2 months. It's my 2-month anniversary. So thank you everybody for being a part of my 2-month party here. That said, I've been with the University of Illinois family and the foundation for the last 15 years. I started off in the foundation for 5 years. And then I was most recently at Urbana-Champaign as the Chief Privacy and Security Officer, overseeing privacy and cybersecurity for Urbana System Office and Springfield, and then worked very closely with UIC and the hospital on many different things. But today I'm here to talk about digital risk, what that means, and how we can all sort of work together. So a little bit of background about how we got here. Before the pandemic in October of 2019, the Risk Council for the university system got together and charged a group to explore how do we address cybersecurity risk across the entire organization. And a task force got together and worked through that. And in July of 2020, they presented 8 recommendations, and they sort of expanded the scope a little bit. They started talking about cybersecurity originally, but as the group was talking, they realized that when you talk about cybersecurity, when you talk about business continuity, IT continuity, privacy, managing third-party risk, compliance, enterprise risk, they're all sort of the same. And so they sort of looked at things and started calling it digital risk, and they came up with these 8 recommendations. The first 2 on the left is 1, create the role of Chief Digital Risk Officer, and then 2, put together a governance structure to then basically help oversee and support the universities in achieving then those 6 recommendations that are on the right, which are these huge buckets of areas of work. Looks at managing third-party risk, business continuity, how do we improve our identity and access management governance, and so on and so forth. But so the initial focus is those 2 items on the left, the CDRO role and governance. So you might be asking, what is digital risk? Well, digital risk really looks at cybersecurity, risk management, privacy, IT continuity, business continuity, compliance. It even includes IT accessibility, and it looks at those areas, and we think about how do cyber threats, how do attacks from various organizations, individuals on our email, on our data, on our students, on our employees. We look at all of those threats. We think about our technology. We think about how everything is coming together quicker. There's more data. Everything's converging. You know, how does our use of technology impact our digital risk? And then finally, we think about how the institution and the choices the institution makes could have an impact on our risk. You know, for example, deciding to go completely remote at the beginning of the pandemic really brought in some additional digital risks to sort of work through. So why do we really care? Well, in the last 2 years, we've dealt with a lot, right? We've dealt with a pandemic. Now we're watching a war go on halfway across the globe. And outside of those major things, you know, we've had these things have happened in the last 12 to 15 months. And these are major digital risks that happened in the organization. Thankfully, we as the University of Illinois system weren't impacted. However, we did participate and we did watch. You see these attacks from companies. I think everybody remembers Colonial Pipeline. They got some ransomware, shut down their production of oil moving across the East Coast. Howard University, I don't know how many people are familiar with Howard University, but school started back in September of 2021, first few days in fall, and they got hit with ransomware, and they were forced to shut down most of their wireless network and other parts of the university, and essentially shut classes down for about a week. You'll see there's the Chinese Personal Protection Act, or also known as PIPL. This came into effect in November of 2021. It talks about how data of Chinese citizens is supposed to be handled, and this has a direct impact on the university. It has an impact on how we conduct research in China. It also has an impact of how we treat the data of our Chinese students. And so there's a long list of these things that go on. My favorite one as of late was Kronos, which is the last one on the list there. In December, right around Christmas, they suffered a ransomware attack. And if you're not familiar with what Kronos does, is they're essentially a third-party company that does payroll and timesheets for many different companies. And they were hit with ransomware and they went offline, and it impacted about 8 million people's paychecks. And Kronos basically told all their customers, we don't know when we're going to have this fixed, so you need to figure out how to do payroll for an extended period of time. And it took them about 2 months to recover from that event. So this is why we care about digital risk. A little bit more here on this slide. This again talks about what digital risk is, but the important thing here on the left hand of the slide, you'll see it says university objectives. These could be university objectives. These could be system office objectives. They could be college. They could be a unit, a department. They could be individual objectives. But they're on the left, and you'll see each of those objectives, they all have digital initiatives that support them. And then there's digital risks that come with that, right? We think about our reliance on the cloud. We think about our reliance on third parties. We think about data privacy. We think about all those sort of things. But the most important thing that we think about here is digital risk is not an island of itself. We know that digital risk can support whatever the initiative is. The flip side of risk is opportunities. So when we think about how we use our digital assets, we want to manage our digital risk, but also enable opportunities. And we want to do that to support whatever objective we're trying to get accomplished, whether, again, it's at the university level, system, or individual college level. In my role, I'm basically charged with enhancing the university's ability to be innovative in all areas, right? Academic, research, clinical, administrative. We want to manage our digital risk while increasing our opportunities. My role is really to help promote a culture of digital risk awareness. And really, we all play a role in digital risk. If you think about risk, we make risk decisions every day. We don't even think about it, right? You got up today, you decided to come into the office. Maybe you didn't decide to come into the office and you're working remote, right? You're walking down the street. If there's an ice cream shop across the street, you could decide to immediately just cross the street. Maybe you look left and right for oncoming traffic and you jet across to get some ice cream. Maybe you decide to walk down to the corner and use a crosswalk and wait. Those are risk decisions that you make without even
Pero no
thinking
sé,
about it.
la Kathleen dijo.
So those are risk decisions that you think automatically, you don't even think about it, right? And that's what we're trying to do with some digital risk is as you engage with technologies, as you answer emails, as you do your work, can you make these risk decisions without even thinking about it? That's sort of an idea of around the culture. I'm here to advise leadership in different ways to mitigate risk. I'm here to partner across the organization. I partner very closely with IT, but I also partner with basically every other part of the organization. It's all of us together working to manage digital risk. And then finally, I have some responsibilities looking at system level policy. One little theme that I think about when I think about digital risk, I think about my 6 Ps. The first 3 Ps are people, process, and product. They're listed in that order. People are the most important thing. So no matter what we're doing, whether we're admitting students, whether we're conducting research, whether we're treating a patient, whether we're processing payments, whether we're trying to buy something, it's the people portion that comes first. And how do they play a role in supporting digital risk? And then the other 3 Ps that I think about is how do we prevent risk? How do we find, how do we position ourselves so we don't even have to deal with some of these risks that are out there? What can we do to stay ahead of it? And then how do we prepare for risk, right? We know there'll be times where we'll find ourselves in a data breach, we'll find ourselves with systems offline, and we'll have to respond. And so what can we do ahead of time to minimize any impact? What can we do to be prepared? And then finally, when we do have that event, how do we persevere? How do we get through it? How do we get past it and then focus on what's important? How do we get back to our day-to-day work? How do we get back to supporting the university as a whole? So this is how I sort of approach digital risk. How's this going to work? Well, it's really easy, right? It's just collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. What this means is this is not a centralization effort, but really this is a federated approach. It's bringing together all the great things that we're already doing across the university and tying them together and sort of taking it to the next step. It's identifying some gaps in some areas and working to fill those gaps. So how do we do this? One, it's through advocacy. I'm an advocate for digital risk. I'm here talking about digital risk today, but at the same time, I'm an advocate for whatever we're trying to do for the organization. So if we're trying to increase our student enrollment, then how do we increase our student enrollment and at the same time manage our digital risk? As I said before, we do this through partnerships. We engage in many different ways to think about how do we address digital risk before it becomes an issue. And then also we manage expectations. Digital risk, like any risk, is huge. There's a lot of risk. It doesn't mean we should be paralyzed. It doesn't mean we should stop doing things, right? The only way to completely eliminate risk in the organization is to basically shut everything down and go home. And I don't see that happening with the university. So how do we take that risk? How do we understand what it is? How do we try to manage it, minimize it, and say, if we want to address this risk, this is what it's going to take from a process standpoint. This is from a people standpoint. If we don't want to manage that risk, that's fine. And then we made that decision and we sort of move on. A little bit more, and I'll talk about this at a very high level and talk about how this group sort of comes into play. A lot of this is being done through governance. So the second recommendation of the task force was to establish governance. I'm currently right now putting together a digital risk council. This is membership of individuals that represent various different functions across all 3 universities, system, office, and the hospital. This group will get together and work through those task force recommendations and other areas that come up, other topics that come up. And we'll look at how do we increase awareness? How do we think about process or technologies that make things easier for people to do what they're trying to do while minimizing risk? And I think a really good example here is, one of the recommendations in the task force is talking about managing third-party risk. So how do we, when we engage with customers or vendors, particularly those who host applications or software, Think about our learning management systems, think about our email system. Those are all third-party vendors. When we engage with those individuals, how do we make sure that those individuals can support the university, that they're addressing data privacy, cybersecurity risk, IT accessibility, and how does that process look for review? How do we all go through that process together and make sure that we have the right vendors in place? So that's an example where I could see discussion with this group coming into play, right? If we came to you and said, how do we improve a process to review vendors? How do we address certain vendors without overwhelming the review process? Those are sort of things that would be interesting to talk about with this group and through the governance process. So I'm going to stop here for a second. I want to say thank you. I want to talk about ongoing engagements. I want to note the email addresses there. If you want to engage with me, have any ideas, have any want to see this presentation within the groups that you work with further, there's my email address that you can use. You can use digitalrisk@uillinois.edu. But I think the last thing I want to mention before I stop for if there's any questions is, so we're putting this governance process together, and I'm probably 6 months away from getting the governance group completely working and functioning. It'll probably be the start of the next academic year. But in that governance process, what we're trying to build underneath it, so we'll have a formal governance structure, but underneath it, there'll be many other groups, whether they're governance groups, whether they're functional groups, that will be part of the conversation. And I see this group here as being a key contributor and part of that conversation. And where I see that working is as we think about solutions or policy changes or process changes or whatever we're going to do to address those risks, is getting that plan, that idea in front of as many people as possible. One, to understand it, and then two, to get the feedback from individuals and say, will this work? What won't work? How do we roll this out into phases? How is this going to impact the organization? And I think this group here represents a great group of individuals to bring those conversations to, again, probably next academic year. But that was why I wanted to engage today. One, so you could put a face with a name. And if you wanted to have any ongoing conversations with me, I'm always available. And then two, to when I come back in maybe 6 months and we talk about this a little bit more, you'll have some context. So that's it. I see there was a question here about where I sit in the organization. And just so that everyone, I see the questions there. I do report to the VPAA. This is a system office level position. I work across all of the IT organizations, so Technology Solutions and UIC, Tech Services in Urbana, ITS in Springfield, AITS and system offices. But my role is really to connect the IT organizations and the non-IT organizations together to achieve what we're trying to do from a risk perspective. So with that, I'll stop for a moment. I don't know if there's any more questions. Happy to answer any, and if we're out of time, happy to have answer questions later as a follow-up.
It looks like we're good, Joe. No more questions. I think you've taken the lead for the most sobering presentation. So thank you. Thank you for bringing your message here. And this is a great place to build support. It'd be great to have it back next fall and kind of see what's grown and do a little bit more outreach with this group and share that message. So thanks again.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll let everybody go. I know you probably want to finish the meeting. It's nice and warm outside, but if between now and the next time I come back, if you want to engage, if there's ways to talk, happy to always have those conversations. That's part of the reason why I'm here. So whether it's with the larger group or whether it's with you individually. So thank you everybody for your time.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. We will now hear from members from our source to pay team, Jim Martini and Philippe Prishbish, with an update on Chrome River.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us and thank you for engaging with us with source to pay Chrome River deployment. So we just wanted to provide you with a quick update. We deployed Chrome River a month ago, and Jim Martini will be joining me here shortly to update you on the first steps, first expense reports, and how we will change training and communications on the Chrome River system going forward. So Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Philippe, and thanks, Bill, and thanks everybody that's part of this. A lot of you have recognized names and you've helped. We did, as Philippe pointed out, we did deploy Chrome River on Monday the 14th. This slide that's being presented.
Bernadette? I can see slides just yet.
Can I do this? I guess I can.
Just one moment.
There we go. This
There
is
you
just
go.
thank you, Bernadette. This is a little bit outdated in terms of volume. I've got some updates. As of yesterday, we've processed 11,757 expense reports, ERs, for over almost $4 million. We've had 2,792 discrete, what I'll call ER owners or recipients of expense reports. And we're currently continuing our training at a little bit different pace. Prior to rollout, the 3 weeks right around rollout with Philippe's help and operational services, we were able to run training sessions every day for almost 3 weeks. We've slowed that down a little bit. So, but I wanted to point out, we are continuing to hold training through March, twice a week, and then we'll set a schedule so that training will continue during throughout the year, because we know people change jobs, people retire, new people come in. There's a lot of job aids and training registration material available on the website that's referenced on this slide. And our daily operational support is available through a service request form. That helps us, if you can possibly use that for your assistance on transactional items, please do so. I just checked earlier this morning and we're somewhere between 24 and 36 hours of responding. Not quite where we'd like to be, but we're getting a lot of inquiries at the moment. Next slide. I think this deserves a little reinforcement here. The modules that went live on February 14th are employee travel expense reports, T-card and P-card transactions. You reconcile all of your card transactions now in one system. Miscellaneous expenses, which are payable items back to employees. You're out someplace and you need some sort of supply, and you're on travel status and you need some whiteboards or some markers. Those are miscellaneous expenses. We do not use Chrome River yet for non-purchase order based vendor payments or payments to non-employees, such as recruits that are coming to town for job applications, speakers, honorariums, things like that. We're still using TEM for those items. And there seems to have been a little bit of confusion about that. We're working to resolve that. At a later date, as I said, we will bring non-purchase order based invoices into Chrome River. We did have quite a bit of a situation where having only a single approver delegate in Chrome River is quite a bit different than what we experienced in TEM. It's not worse, it's maybe not better, but it is different. And we're working through that. And if you've had some struggles with discerning how to organize, how to assign your approvers, let us know. We've talked to several departments in the last 2 to 3 weeks and explained how it works. And for the most part, every unit has managed to accommodate the standard practice. But with that said, I've mentioned before, we're not through. I'm not gonna, we really don't want to rest on our laurels. We want to celebrate them, and we want to celebrate the Philippe staff, and AITS helped us, accounting has helped us a lot. We want to recognize the accomplishment, but we have to continue to improve. And with that said, we've recognized several areas to focus on in improvement. And one is segregation of card transactions. They are being expensed properly, but card transactions are not as visible as they were in our previous model. So we're working hard to determine a resolution for that. I also wanted to mention that we have begun some discussions about forming a an organizational structure that will support continuous process improvement, continuous system improvement with Chrome River. We want that to be a two-way process. We receive regular information from Chrome River about their updates, their targets, their project timeline. We want to share those. And at the same time, we want to hear what the issues, what the struggles, what the challenges, even what the suggestions from units such as yourselves and business managers and from the academic side of the world. How can we get better? How can we continue to get better? So I guess I can open it up for questions. I think I got like 4 minutes according to the schedule. As I said, if you've got transactional issues, please submit those to us through the service desk ticket. That allows us to collect them, to measure trends, to figure out what the hot topics are. And I do want to, before I start off on free-form questions, I do want to thank all of you. Many of you were participants in some of our advisory groups. Many of you had an opportunity to test the Chrome River product, and I'd like to continue that effort. So if you've got some questions.
Jim, there are a few questions. Where can they make improvement recommendations, or who can they email?
Well, we're working on, that's exactly what I just said. We're working on a structure that will provide an opening, a path for those. We'll get that out there soon.
Okay. And then just a clarification, where are expenses for job candidates processed?
If they're not employees, they will remain in TEM for the time being.
Okay, thank you. And then program advances in the past have been very quick. This person's been waiting 10 days and wondering if there are any issues in the back end. They're finding that reimbursements and P-card approvals have been very quick though, and thank you.
Well, advances should begin going through Chrome River, new advances. If you could submit it, that person, individual, whoever it was, could submit a ticket with the specific report number. TEM used to prefix its report numbers with an ER, and Chrome River, it's all numeric. If you can send us your report number, we'll look at it.
Okay. Let's see. It seems they're coming in quick now here. It seems that Chrome River ER for P-card transactions was posted to Banner once the code reviewer approved it. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Dana, what was the?
Yeah, I'll read it again. It seems Chrome River ER for P-card transaction was posted to Banner once the code reviewer approved it. Is that correct?
Well, it depends, I guess I'd have to say. If you're in athletics in either Urbana or Chicago or Springfield, there's a compliance queue that it goes to. But that should post to Banner just as it did in TEM once the budget officer / charge code reviewer has approved it.
Okay,
they do
I'll
come
reach
to
out.
us. They do come to us if that's the question.
Okay, I'll reach out to this person individually.
Okay.
The next one, a document was recently sent out to address accessibility issues. Will enhancements be made to Chrome River to improve accessibility to end users?
And that's underway right this minute. There's a whole background to this, and we did subject what I'll call Chrome River's out-of-the-box product to an accessibility review. There's a group here in Urbana, although the system office, I've come to understand, does not have an ADA compliance structure, but there was a group here that subjected the product to quite a bit of testing. However, it was not our version of the product. And when the university elected through the configuration effort to add university-specific fields, custom fields, move things around on the screen to make it easier and more understandable for our people, apparently that opened up some gaps in a screen reader in specific, some screen readers to be able to function intelligently. So we are pursuing improvements with the vendor as we speak. There's lots of activity in that space. The communication that was referred to was an accommodation in the meantime.
Okay, I see a couple more questions. I'll ask one or two, and then the others I can get the questions to Jim and respond back. But there was a question about being unable to split a T-card transaction to a state and local funds.
I believe that's always been the case. We've never been able to, well, let me think about that a minute. That may be related to the fact that card transactions are not presented the same way they used to and aren't as visible. I'll make a note about that one. I think that's correct.
Okay. Chrome River report IDs are not on monthly statements, so it's not easy to reconcile the transactions. Will Chrome River report IDs be added in the future? And they said this might be a question for accounting and not payables, but you can let me know.
I think report IDs actually might be in Ledger. I think on the Ledger documents, it appears as a document reference number, but we are working hard to improve the whole reporting world because, for example, merchant names do not appear in Ledger today.
Okay. And just one more clarification, Jim, before I let you go, and the others I promise I will get answers for, but just circling back on these expenses for job candidates that are processed in TEM, is that just reimbursements to the candidate? What about payments to vendors such as airfare or job posting expenses?
Payments to vendors, non-purchase order based payments to vendors, and other expenses, non-purchase order expenses that are not employee reimbursements need to continue to go through TEM for the time being, including job posting expenses.
Great, thank you for that clarification. And again, I'll get answers for the other questions that are posted. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all. And Bill, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I'm sure I'm not as exciting as Joe Barnes's presentation.
You know what? That was great, Jim. I think you always win the most questions. So I think the community really appreciates you coming out and working with them. So thank you. And was that was it, huh? Philippe is nothing to present.
That's it. Thank you. We were just introducing the communication training changes to Chrome River, and then Jim's rundown on the first month of Chrome River application and use. So that's all we had to share about. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Jim and Philippe. So 2:44, we're not doing bad on time. So thank you, and as our last presenter today, we turn our attention to one last exciting subject. I'm pleased to introduce the Office of Procurement Diversity, and specifically to hear from Harold Majeroon, President and CEO of Divine Integration Incorporated.
Hi, Bill, can you hear me?
I can.
Am I sharing my screen? No, I'm reviewing Bernadette's. Never mind, I got it, thank you. All right, so yes, I wanted to introduce Harold, but I also wanted to just say good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shauna Claiborne with the Office of Procurement Diversity. And as most of you know, our department oversees the supplier diversity program for the system. And we heard great information about the new quick form process, or the new quick quote process form that purchasing mentioned earlier. So really, we're kind of here today to kind of help kick off the IPEC 2140 award that they mentioned earlier, and reiterate, the benefits of using this award and how it will save you time from having to put together an RFP or go out to bid for some of your larger IT projects, for example. And just remember that these firms are already vetted. You don't have to spend time searching for a firm in the large pool of IT firms out there, right? And they're BEP certified and ready to meet your needs. So I wanted to say that before introducing Mr. Harold. And we also have Dale. I don't know if you want to say anything, but Dale Morrison is on the line, our Assistant Director for OPD. So we're glad to be here today. And Harold is actually the president of Divine, Harold Maduran. His firm has been engaged with us for a couple years now and presented at our last diversity symposium. I believe we had our last one in person in 2019. So he's been engaged for a while and he's on this award now and ready to meet your needs. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Harold.
Thank you. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Loud and clear.
I'll share my screen and bear with me a moment. So, Shauna, thank you very much for the introduction and giving me the time to talk today. I guess I got 15 minutes, so I'm just setting the time clock. The stopwatch now. Divine, you will see the spelling as D-I-V-I-H-N. We pronounce it as Divine. We've been in business for about 20 years now. It's the 20th year. And we are a technology consulting services entity. And we provide advisory, consulting, design, development, implementation, and staffing services in technology. There are 5 areas of expertise that we bring to the table. I should actually talk about 4 areas of specialization and then the staffing group. In today's call, I will be talking about these 4 areas of specialization and what we really bring to the table, kind of value that we add to the client. And I'll basically talk about these stories rather than trying to sell you on what great things that we have done elsewhere, because if these things resonate with you and if there are any questions, I'll be very pleased to answer. So the 4 areas we are talking about are Salesforce, solutions in Salesforce, and then Microsoft-centric cloud solutions with Microsoft Azure. Risk and cybersecurity, quite a bit of what Joe Barnes talked about earlier. You would find some that resonates with that. And then enterprise solutions using enterprise architecture as a holistic discipline to come up with solutions that work for the business. So we'll talk about Salesforce first. We are talking about a project that we started in 2017 and that continues, not because it's gone beyond schedule or anything like that. It's a project that went on for the first 2 years for the implementation. And then we continue to be involved with the client, supporting them. So this is for a company. It's actually a non-profit entity that provides training and certification services for the auto collision industry. So they had in-house developed systems, and at some point in time, it was really not working the way they wanted to deliver the services that they want for the clients. They wanted to provide more online training. They wanted to be in a better place to schedule assessments, training, as well as in-person training, as well as assessments. And we actually got involved to identify a learning management system for them. After going through an exercise, joint exercise, we decided on Doshibo. And as we kept working, we started seeing the need for also replacing the rest of the operation system that they had, and decided on Salesforce. And for this client, we have gone about integrating the learning management system with programs that have been developed on Salesforce. These programs address the recognition programs. So what I mean by the recognition programs, these auto collision repair shops like Gerber, if you go there, you would find some certification, gold class certification and so on. these certifications are provided by the entity I'm talking about. So the credits that they get will have to be tracked, and that is where the recognition programs they come in, and also their employees will have to be certified at certain levels, and all these things are tracked by these recognition programs. The system also has e-commerce capabilities where a student, an individual working in these repair shops can come in and buy certain courses, or the training managers in those shops can buy the training courses. And that is also provided in the system that we have given here. And then the last one is a scheduling system that enables them to schedule in-person assessments and training programs. So all these are brought together on a Salesforce platform by integrating external packages like Doshibo, Schedulo, which happens to be on a Salesforce platform, but it's a separate package. And also what used to be a separate package earlier became a B2B commerce of Salesforce. All these were integrated together, and we were involved in the solutioning, involved in the development, custom development as needed, and we work together with them. So we have a team that is integrated with the client team. So this is an example of how the next one is in the risk and cybersecurity area. So when you heard Joe Barnes earlier talking about his 6 Ps, he talked about prepare, protect, and persevere. What do you see on the left of the screen? Cyber risk governance, protection, and detection and response. Just slight different representations of what Joe had earlier mentioned. So we provide services in all these areas. And Joe was talking a bit about cyber risk governance. Our group focuses substantially on the governance aspect, cyber risk governance aspect. So one success story that I can talk about here is a ransomware attack response plan that was prepared. We put together a framework to enable this client's response plan for any kind of ransomware attacks that they might face. The company that I'm talking about is a 20 billion plus corporate major. They are in air conditioning and a few other industrial areas. So we developed a process framework that using US Department of Defense OODA loop, basically is a observe, orient, decide, and act loop. We put together that framework, and it consisted of the policies that they had enforced, the decision-making process, escalation charts, and calculators for calculating the business impact of any kind of ransomware attacks and how they would go about responding to that. The team, it's worth talking about the kind of team that we have working on this project. The person who's leading this project was the chief risk officer of ATOS, which actually managed the cyber risk program for cyber risk program as part of the overall IT program for the last 2 Olympics. So we have some senior resources that work with us, and that adds some extra strength. The next one is the case that I can talk about in the cloud solutions area. The client we are talking about here is a blood glucose monitoring device manufacturer. Over here, they just, sorry, I've just gone to the wrong slide, bear with me. So in this case, we worked with the procurement department. They had come up with a program to control the procurement costs for both direct as well as indirect procurement. And we worked with them. They had already prepared a prototype. We brought in additional resources to help them bring this program to completion. We continue working on this. And over here, the technology being used is Power BI as part of the Microsoft suite. And the next one I have here is on the enterprise solutions. Now, by enterprise solutions, I am talking about strategic advisory services that we provide using applied enterprise architecture as the key discipline. We have helped a large county government, actually the largest county government in the US, put together their 10-year strategic technology plan. It was completed in 2018, and we are very close to starting a refresh effort on the same strategic plan. So over here, we work with the county officials, understanding their strategic goals for the county, and then aligning their IT strategy with the county's strategic goals, and coming up with a roadmap or 10-year roadmap. We conducted a SWOT analysis for their IT processes, looked at their current technology resources, people, process, technology, all of them together, and then came up with a technology forecast, and then finally a roadmap, which is getting implemented in stages by the county. So we are being brought in again for doing a refresh of this to see where they are as far as their strategic plan is concerned, and what needs to be updated in that. So this is a quick look at what we do as a business in terms of the specializations. Now, a critical part of all these things are the resources. So we have a workforce solutions group, which does contract staffing, which does full-time staffing, and it does flexible resource staffing. The term gig economy is something that most of you might be familiar with. And we do believe that more and more in IT, the need for such flexible resources would only keep increasing. More importantly, it will start going upstream. So what I mean by that is, it is very common for many graphic design kind of roles being available on a gig basis, flexible contract basis, but more specialized resources is not available that much. So we are trying to build, we are building a community. We call it flex community on cybersecurity. So what we mean is a community of specialized resources whose capabilities are known to us through an affirmation process. And we bring those resources to the market, make them available to our clients for flexible engagements. So if somebody wants to just consult a specialist on a particular topic, even if for a few hours, or want something implemented, but can be flexible about the start and end the points, and leave it to the resource or the team of resources to get it done, that will fall under the flexible engagement category. So we are building the communities, and the first version of the FlexForce platform, which becomes a marketplace that brings together such resources, clients, and service organizations. The first version of it, we are expecting sometime between August and September of this year. And we are hoping that that would make quite a bit of a value addition for our clients. Talking about innovations that we have in Divine, we had the 2012 Cody Awards for HCM. We won that award in 2012. It was a platform, integrated platform for resource matching as well as quality assessment through interviews and testing. The other innovations I just now talked about, Flex Community and the Flex Platform, Flex Force platform.
Harold, I hate to interrupt. We do have a tight schedule and it is at the 3 o'clock.
I will close it very shortly. Now I'm trying to stop sharing.
Thank you.
Any questions at this point in time?
There are no questions.
Okay.
You have your, yeah, and we'll send out the contact information, and we all know where the IPEC 2140 list of vendors is. So this, your information will be there, of course, as well. So this is not the last you will see of Divine. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you very much for your time, and all of you have a wonderful day. I know you had a pretty long 2.5 hours of presentations. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Harold, and thank you, Shauna and Dale, too. And people know they can reach out to you if they're interested in these services or UIC or UIS purchasing. So that would be great. I want to thank everyone for coming today. We appreciate your time and hope that you found today's information useful. As a reminder, you will receive a link to the recorded presentation and then also a copy of the presentation. Please stay safe and well until our next meeting. Go enjoy the warm weather. We will see you all again on May 18th, which is the season finale of this year's AFO BMG series. Please remember to reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help you. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.